Okay, so here we go. Another one-take wonder. This is the last one in the series. I'm looking at your analysis section now. Starting off the second sentence, you're using however still. You might not have noticed that correction on the last section, but you want to skip that. So instead we have yet that. You say, and social institutions related to crime. I say, as they all relate to crime. Minor difference, I think it reads better. You say, individually, each of 3 articles has limited scope. I say, each of 3 articles considered here have limited scope. Probably have a limited scope will be better as I'm reading it. So I'm going to put that in. I'm sending you the re-corrections here at the end. But taken together, they form. So you then used however again, 2 sentences in a row starting up with however. Again, bad form to keep starting sentences with the same words, and bad form to keep starting sentences with however. You can use however in one circumstance. Garner talks about it where you mean by whatever means, right? So, but if you mean yet or but, just say yet or but. So if I was going to say, however we do it, we have to win the game, meaning by whatever means. We have to win the game, but that's the only time you would start a sentence with however. Together they form a reasonably complete picture of the practice, was the way I phrased it. You called it create a more complete picture of broken twisting. Yeah, it's a matter of style. That's not a big deal there. If you like your way, that's fine with me. I sometimes just play around with things a little bit, give it a different look. Particularly, they frame. I didn't start the timer. I'm going to have to go with probably 8 minutes. All right. Particularly, I say they frame the reality that broken windows is deficient in 2 respects. First, second. We go along pretty well there in the sentence that goes with second. You say second is a perception of what constitutes disorder in community. I say second, it fails to take note of the perception. I'm building it out more, giving the reader more to go with. Now, in the second paragraph, you start to do a good job of mixing up the authors. That's the whole point of this thing. When I see L and H and F and D in the same sentence, I'm happy. And then I see H and Y a little further down, that's getting the idea. As long as you're mixing the authors together, and the more you do that, the better you do. They argue disorder and crime, similar circumstances, you need a cite there. I didn't change the sentence, but you do need a cite. You're going with in addition, which is good. In the third sentence, the point of consensus. You say the consensus between, I say the point of consensus between them. Again, not a big deal. But I do change it around a little bit after that in the last phrase and sentence. Is that the results from broken windows-based policing is at best mixed? The results is at best mixed? No, the results are at best mixed. You got to watch that subject-verb agreement. It can get tricky. You did that because policing, the word right next to is, it would be policing is a social good, right? That would be a correct sentence, but is goes to the results. You would say the results are if they were right beside each other, so you got to watch out for that. And that's a proofreading thing too. You got to have a good proofreader in life. The lack of a causal relationship causal relationship between disorder and crime would predict that the outcome as it, and you say would seem to support that. I say would predict that outcome as it undermines the premise of broken windows. Yeah, play around with it, see what you think. 1990s, again, you're still using that apostrophe in there, and you need a cite, particularly because you talk about how they aptly named it, and then you put it in quotes. much like numbers, when you have quotes, cites have got to be there. I then start a new paragraph. You have H and Y asserting that needs a cite. And then I think I left some of this alone fairly severely here. Minority communities, perception that I did change it. You say the perception that the amount of disorder is greater in predominantly minority communities. I say perception by authority figures that the amount of disorder. So who is perceiving that? Authority figures are perceiving that. Is greater in predominantly minority communities. You say affects, I say clearly affects who law enforcement tend to police. And then you say as pointed out by LNH, I change the sentence around. Furthermore, racially influenced perception disregards how disorder really affects communities. So some changes there. Again, I like your writing. I think you're a strong writer. I look at a lot of student papers over the years. I get a sense. And you're in good shape. I make suggestions. Many of them are just to give you another look, as I say, another approach. In any event, as pointed by LNH, okay. The last phrase are in that sentence, right? You have the amount of disorder in the community does not really affect an individual's criminal behavior. I say does not really influence the levels of criminal behavior by its residents. And the cite too is needed there. Then you're going on F&D's article. You're in reasonably good shape there. You say more likely to be stopped than Caucasians. I say are significantly more likely to be stopped. Using significantly there is a clue to the reader that this is coming from some kind of a numbers type analysis. Disorder. You say mentions that race. I would go more with reports. It's a little stronger than just mentioning it. Needs a cite there. You have a contraction of it's there. I corrected that to it is. Where you have 140,000 people charged with misdemeanor crimes, but most. Okay, so the question there is, over what interval was that? That's an important question, right? I take it to be an important question anyway. I mean, it makes a difference, right? Whether that's over the weekend or over 10 years. The reader doesn't know that. You know that. That's the curse of knowledge. You know the answer to that question, but it's easy to forget that the reader hasn't read what you read, doesn't know what you know. You may be the regional expert on this at this point. So be careful with what you throw about as common knowledge, because at this point, by being the expert, it's easy to forget what other people don't know. And of course that needs a cite because you've got 140,000 there. You know what a conclusion may be drawn, broken windows policing ends up eroding. So that's my terminology there. You say consequently broken windows policing. The ultimate conclusion that may be drawn is that broken windows policing ends up eroding trust between the community and the law. Compare them, see which one is better in your mind. You have a this makes, should be that makes. Again, this thing I'm about to tell you about, that thing I just told you about. Think of it that way. You also have law enforcement may control on social disorder. I thought order made more sense there. I guess you control either way, glass half full, half empty. See what you think, or maybe just figure out what the authors do in that situation. The last sentence there I changed says, rather what needs to be done is I would say I'm changed a little bit, is that community institutions that can advance informal social control should be built up. Like that more. I'm going to try to get this last little bit in before I run out of time here, which I'm going to do anyway in 27 seconds, but I'll go a little over, it'll be okay. So, using a strategy that is, you say time and again been proven, I say that has Alright, I got this wrong. Sometimes I'm changing these things around, it gets a little confusing. But anyway, using a strategy that has been established as being only inconsistently effective in fighting crime. Oh, this is what it is. Can't you just say it's just generally ineffective? I think that's a much simpler way to get that out. I played around with that sentence a lot. I don't like how you wrote it very much. I don't like how I wrote it very much. But I think generally ineffective would do the job there. Caucasians, you say misguided perceptions. I say incomplete understandings. You say crime is happening in those communities due to their own racial prejudices. Who are you talking about? Whose prejudices? There's that their own there, that pronoun there, it's not clear to the reader. Consequently, broken windows policing ends up being implemented just for the sake of implementing something. Yeah, I'm fine with that, to be honest. Anyway, I'm going to go to a second, probably won't take the whole 10 minutes, I'm going to go to another video just to get the synthesis straightened out.